with the Palestinian resistance.
I will pay for any queer that wants to go to Palestine. I'll cover your flight. I would avoid rooftops.
This is a Visegrad 24 series about the Israel-Hamas war.
You created Lips of TikTok a good couple of years ago. Why was the need for something like this to be created?
Honestly, when I created it, I didn't know because it kind of started as like a hobby. And obviously now I see the need for it. But in the beginning, it started just to kind of laugh at some of the COVID fanatics. And now I think that it became a very powerful voice to fight the wokeness and to fight to protect children.
I think it was initially also something that was a little bit esoteric to those people who watched that type of content, and the average person in the US maybe wasn't aware of how far things had gone with a lot of the young people out today. Did a lot of people come up to you and be like, I had no idea it was this bad?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it got so big so fast, was partially because of that like shock factor. People were like, I can't believe this is actually happening. And, you know, for the first few weeks, people were able to say, you know, oh, she's cherry picking, this is not mainstream. And then here I am, basically 2.5 years later, and every single day there's new content.
Never ending.
More stuff. It's never ending. I mean, this is not cherry picked. This is 100% the mainstream left. And I'm glad that, and I was able to expose it all, basically.
We are in Israel. Here the nation is still in many ways mourning. And you being Jewish, did you think that something like this could ever happen?
I mean, at the end of the day, the Hamas terrorists, they hate the Jews, not just Hamas, all extremists, jihadists. They hate Jews. They openly say that. They openly call for our murder and our elimination. So, you know, it's not that shocking because this is literally what they stand for.
When it comes to these Islamist groups, you have the violent faction, the jihadis, but you also have other groups that are for political Islamism. In the US, you have this organization, CARE. You have some politicians, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. Do you feel that Americans are aware of exactly what political Islamism is, or do they just associate it with the religion Islam, and technically a religion can't be that bad?
I don't think they're aware. One of the mistakes that we make is assuming that people know. And then when we realize they don't, we get very frustrated. But the reality is that a lot of people don't know. And I think that we have to do a better job of educating people.
Because sometimes you wonder when you see footage from college campuses, for example, and you hear these chants of there is only one solution, intifada, revolution, or Yemen, Yemen, make us proud, turn another boat around, praising the Houthis.
River to the sea, yeah.
So it seems that a lot of these people that are chanting these things, they don't really know what they're getting involved in. They think it's some form of progressive national liberation movement, but if they would have been on the ground in Gaza, then maybe by then they would have realized that this is not really what it is.
Yeah, correct. They don't know. There was actually one really viral video. Someone asked a protester who was chanting from the river to the sea, which river? Like, what are you talking about? Which river and which sea? And she had no idea.
Blank.
I mean, that's just like a basic. So, I mean, I thought that was really funny. But I think in general, especially for like our youth, like college campuses, they're just told kind of, you know, what are we fighting now? Because, you know, 2 years ago, it was BLM. And then now they're told to fight for Palestinians. They're told to go fight, you know, any number of things. Fight for LGBTQ pride, fight for abortion rights, fight for the climate, right? We see a lot of climate terrorism in the US. They're kind of just like told, like, okay, this is what you have to fight for now. And the root of that is really the oppressor narrative, which is what their entire worldview is based off of. So, right, like LGBTQ people, oh, they're oppressed, they're marginalized. BLM, like blacks, they're oppressed, they're marginalized. That's what they're told. And now they're told, look, the people in Gaza, they're oppressed. Like the Jews Israel is oppressing them, and they're not white. So
Yeah, they come with these statements that Israel is a white supremacist state. It's a colonial state, the last colonial project that needs to be decolonialized. That it's an apartheid state. So it seems that they are cherry picking a little from various other liberal causes from previous decades, and now they apply all of it to Israel.
exactly, yeah. And for the left, Jews are only white when it benefits them. So in this case, it benefits them now because they can claim, the whites are oppressing the colored people again, the people in Gaza.
When you've been walking around the streets here and when you've seen IDF units, would you concur that Israel is a white state?
I mean, what percentage of Jews living here are not even white?
I don't know, but looking around on the streets and at these army units, it seems to be quite mixed.
Yeah.
And from all corners of the world.
Yeah, 100%.
But also this, as you said, oppressor-oppressed dichotomy. It is something that is a part of critical theory that has been taught at universities now for a good 4 or 5 decades or so. We have radical students, but when we saw this congressional hearing with the presidents of various Ivy League universities, Harvard, Penn, and MIT, basically all the presidents said that calls for genocide against Jews on campus could be contextual and that it's not necessary against their rules. What is actually going on at these universities, to be honest?
It's what you said. It's critical theory, and they are embedding obviously critical race theory into all these colleges. They've been doing it probably for decades, and this is the result. And there are a lot of people who aren't necessarily like right wing, but a lot of Jews, like someone like Bill Ackman, who all of a sudden now is like shocked at what's happening. And, a lot of people on the right are like, we've been calling this out for years. Like, what did you think would happen? So I think that this is really waking a lot of people up. A lot of center people, center right, center left, and a lot of Jews, a lot of Democrat Jews. So I think this is just like a massive wake up call to how they've really been indoctrinating and brainwashing our youth. And like I said, they've been doing this for so long that a lot of these youth are now not even youths, but they're now managers, they're professors, they're in Fortune 500 companies, they're in big corporations, they're teaching in schools and in colleges. So this is a result, it's a massive problem.
It seems that the corporate world has also become much more politicized than it used to be in recent years. We mentioned earlier Black Lives Matter. That was maybe a bit of a watershed moment when all of these big companies all of a sudden started making huge declarations and statements that they will earmark this and that amount for various causes. Then we had recently this debate about DEI that seems to be in every company, every institution, every university. But apart from if we have identified the universities as one of these sources, the corporate world, where else do you see this influence coming from that is turning young people into this very progressive part of politics? Is it the world of celebrities, Hollywood? What else is out there that is shaping the minds of young people?
I mean, it's everything you mentioned and social media, namely TikTok. And that's obviously a more recent thing. But I think that most recently we saw a crazy influx of all the things that TikTok is really pushing, the LGBTQ movement, the anti-Semitism, and the promotion of like the DEI and like kind of like the anti-white racism. All are, TikTok is just has an infestation of it. So it's really it's everywhere.
Speaking about TikTok, I assume that you have been keeping your finger on the pulse of TikTok in general, but when it comes to the war against Hamas, what content do you see out there?
I mean, there's been so many reports of this. I know there are people who've been doing like real investigative stuff into the kind of the hashtags that trend on TikTok, and they found like crazy numbers. I mean, the anti-Israel content is being pushed through the algorithm much harder than the other content, and going viral much quicker.
Also, of course, TikTok is an entity owned by a Chinese company, and Chinese companies, we all know that their relationship with the Chinese government, led by the Communist Party of China, is so close that it's hard to tell if there is any separation between them at all. And China, has to be said, is on the other side of the US in most conflicts internationally. Seems to be this little bloc: Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, forming against the EU, the US, and now also Israel. So do you see TikTok as being a player in this wider geopolitical conflict, so to say?
Yeah, I think that based on the reports that we saw of what China could do with TikTok, using TikTok as their weapon, what they could do to America and to push that anti-Israel sentiment, I do see them using TikTok as a weapon, and they could definitely use it for any other cause that they believe in, that they want to push onto us. And they have, like I said, it's the gender stuff. I mean, it's kind of like destroying America from within. Like the TikTok being on millions of Americans' phones, and not just any Americans. I mean, it's geared towards young people, towards teenagers and young adults. So TikTok just being on their phones and people scrolling it's us destroying our own country, and using China's weapon. And I think it's very dangerous.
Yeah, it seems to be that they are using it as a way to strengthen the self-hatred trend that it has been visible anyway in the US and large parts of the Western world. But now that we have been talking about this, it's easy to be a little bit downbeaten about the chances that we can turn this thing around. But do you think that there is some way of reaching the youth, of taking them on this path and creating a different future?
Yeah, it's 100%. The same way China is using TikTok as a weapon, I think that we can take their weapon and use it as well for our benefit. I think it's not just within social media. Like there's so many weapons that just the left in general is using against us, and I think that we have to really tackle each one, and we really are. We're helping with like a lot of different legislation. I know there is like talk about banning TikTok, which I think is great. It should definitely be banned. But I think it's this whole new sort of narrative about how dangerous DEI is, that I think that's a really good path to go down. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep exposing it. And we're slowly going to take back our country. We're going to dismantle DEI and remove that from all the corporations and companies and every organization. I mean, it's in every hospital and school and company. It's everywhere. So we're going to dismantle it and take back the companies and schools and everything. The gender ideology, critical race theory, all that stuff, we're removing that from all the schools.
There seems to be also more and more grassroots initiatives, organizations. For example, there's Moms for Liberty that is now watching over school boards across the US and seeing what they're trying to implement in schools. What other similar organizations are out there, and are some of these contacting you to try to find out exactly where they should be fighting, on which front, and what threats are out there?
Well, first of all, independent journalism has skyrocketed thanks to Elon Musk. So pretty much anyone now can start something on Twitter and their content can go viral. There's free speech on Twitter. which is huge because pretty much anyone who has a phone can become a reporter or a journalist or an activist. So that's amazing. Moms for Liberty, incredible organization. There's America First Legal. They're actually filing tons of lawsuits with a lot of the DEI stuff. So like I'll expose a company, let's say, like, oh, this company says they're not going to hire whites. So they're going to go and file a lawsuit. So they're doing like the lawfare, which is a very important aspect. There's so many incredible people working really hard and doing a lot of great stuff, making big waves.
Returning to Israel, what has happened in the south of Israel on October 7th and later, and now with the war in Gaza, there is a group of people who somehow have come to believe that Hamas is some form of national liberation group that has legitimacy and is like any other movement out there, and for that reason they believe that they should be supported. What message would you have to that group of people?
I don't know if it's willful ignorance or they're just evil, but there's literally so much evidence, Hamas themselves saying what their evil intentions are and what their goal is and what their plan is. They literally stormed Israel and had GoPros, and these people will still say there's not enough evidence. Obviously Israel captured dozens of terrorists and interrogated them, and they are very open about what their intentions are. I mean, they want to kill every single Jew in the world, not just in Israel. And then when they're done with Jews, they're going to move on to other people. Anyone obviously is not Muslim. They say first Saturday, then Sunday. First they want to kill all the Jews and then all the Christians. And they say oh yeah, we raped people. We were told to rape a certain amount, to kidnap a certain amount, to kill a certain amount, men, women, children. They had instructions. They videoed it. If someone still doesn't recognize that Hamas is an evil terrorist organization, then, like I said, it's willful ignorance or just evil, because it's impossible not to recognize that.
If we look specifically at feminist organizations in the US, they used to have the slogan "Believe Women," but in this case, it seems that in Israel it doesn't really apply.
Yeah, me too, unless you're a Jew. And it's funny because Hamas is extremely misogynistic and sexist. I mean, women have no rights in Gaza. In the whole Middle East, Israel's the only country, right, that has this much freedom for women. It's a normal democracy. But it's hilarious watching the left embrace kind of Hamas and what's going on there, when they literally stand for everything that the left says that Hamas is against everything that the left says that they stand for.
Yeah, another group we've seen out in the marches, they walk with these banners, Queers for Palestine. If those queers would actually manage to march all the way to Gaza, what kind of, how do you think they would be received over there?
I will pay for any queer that wants to go to Palestine. I'll cover your flight, but I would avoid rooftops if I were them when they get to Gaza. But this is the thing, the left, they're all LGBTQ rights and, but, if an LGBTQ person goes into Gaza, Hamas is going to kill them. You're not allowed to be gay or queer or trans there.
Yeah, so for them, I guess it's better if they never find out about what the idols actually are all about. Yeah. Well, Chaya, thank you very much for coming on today, and it was a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.